Blog Talk Radio.
Hello everyone, this is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good evening. It is 10 o'clock p.m. here in Calgary, Alberta, Wednesday, July the 20th. I'm glad to be here. This is Child Abuse Prevention and Human Rights Abuse Prevention is up to us. 30-minute live streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. And chat room is open there, and I did pop the link into what I want to talk about tonight. I'm talking about child sexual abuse. I've been talking about this on my evening shows for quite a while, probably about the last week or two, and that's mainly because it's what I'm dealing with, child sexual abuse, incest, and it's something that's important for me to talk about. Like I'm not afraid to raise my voice. I want to go, obviously I'm doing public speaking via internet radio, but I do plan on going really nationwide and speaking in the public sector, about this stuff. And so I don't mind talking about this stuff. It needs to be talked about. If we're ever going to solve it, if we're going to fix it, it has to be talked about. And the issues of child sexual abuse, a lot of people are so uncomfortable with these issues, that they just like to pretend that it doesn't happen, or that there's no such thing, or maybe they don't need to know about it, whatever. It's your choice to listen to my shows. I always give a discretionary warning on all of my shows, and that's because I'm talking about abuse. And abuse is a very sensitive subject, and you have to know personally what's good for you to listen to, right? So if you're a survivor and you're just starting your healing journey, you want to be careful listening to my shows. If you're someone who finds the topics of abuse and violence, sexual violence, assault, child abuse of any kind, difficult to listen to, that it may make you uncomfortable, you have to make the right choice for yourself and, make sure that you turn the show off, right? This is your discretion, so please listen at your own discretion. Young people under the age of 18, I just ask that you have permission from an adult, somebody who's older, who's an adult who can help you make a decision whether you should be listening to my shows, right? I don't know how young the people are who are listening to my shows, so it's very important that you have someone who's an adult who can help you decide whether it's age appropriately okay for you, because it's definitely not for young children. All of my shows are not for young children, and they really are adult-oriented, right? Even though ultimately it is about stopping child abuse. So, I'd like to just make sure everybody knows this. So thanks, everybody. I appreciate everybody tuning into all my shows. I really appreciate it. I have a lot of people listening to my shows, and, I had no idea how long I'd be doing these shows. I say this a lot, but it's because it's true. I do thank everybody for tuning in. I have an enormous amount of people who tune in and to hear what I have to say about child abuse and about my own story. And, I just hope that somebody's getting something out of this. I know that I am. And it's helping me to get through my healing journey to be able to talk about this stuff, right? Whether it's just talking to you or talking to a friend, which I do have a lot of friends who do support me in this. But mainly it's because I want to be a public voice. I'm not ashamed to talk about it. I'm not afraid to talk about it. I don't carry the shame from the abuse that I suffered as a child, because it was not my fault. And my parents have put this on me, and one of my siblings put this on me, and it was not my fault, so why would I feel guilty or take the shame on? So I don't have any shame, and so that's why I can talk freely about this stuff, right? So, that's why I do this. And mainly to be a voice for people who cannot raise their voices. There's a lot of people out here whose abusers, who fear for their lives. Their abusers may still be living. They may have threatened their lives. There's many people who cannot come forward to point out, the fact that they were abused, because they're afraid of their lives will be taken if they do, say anything about the abuse. So many times that's the case. And so I'm just a voice for people out here who can't speak out, because I'm willing to do it, and I don't care if my abusers are still living or not, and which only one of them is, actually. My mother's passed away, and my brother committed suicide at the age of 33. But my abuser dad is still living. He's 88 years old. He's mentally ill, and he's being well looked after by one of my siblings. So, it's just, I don't care if he knows what I'm doing. He does know what I'm doing. He knows I wrote my book, A Life of Death and Redemption, and he knows that I'm doing public speaking about the abuse that I suffered as a child at his hands, as well as my mother and my brother. So, I really don't care what my family thinks. So that's why I don't mind talking about this stuff. So, this is the issue. We have to talk about it, or it's not going to change, and it's not going to go away. And a lot of people think, hey, it'll never change anyway. We can talk about it all we want, it'll never change. That's a cop-out. That's a complete cop-out. It's like saying, kids with cancer, it's like saying, okay, since we're never going to cure cancer, well, let's just forget about it. Why are we even talking about curing cancer? Let's just not even worry about it. Stop all the research. Stop the funding, and who cares, because we're never going to find a cure anyway. That's a real cop-out. There's people diligently searching for a cure for cancer, and I believe they'll find one. If we are searching for a solution to child abuse, and I believe that we already have these answers, they need to be implemented, right? So thanks everybody for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm on a bit of a rant here tonight. I just had a great interview on Dreamcatchers Talk Radio, really awesome, here on Blog Talk Radio, talkradio.com/Dreamcatchers, or you can type into the search bar Dreamcatchers, DREAMCATCHERS. Talking to Jane Lamont Alvarez and her husband Leo Alvarez, the founder and co-founder of the Children's Wall of Tears. Maybe I can get them to come on my show. Wouldn't that be great? It was an awesome interview. Check out their website, http://www.thechildrenswalloftears.org. Not-for-profit organization based out of California, and they founded it. They're also the founder of the National Association Against Cruelty of Children down in California. I hope I got that right. But anyway, check out their website. You can get all the information about what they're doing, who they are, and they've got some great info. And the Children's Wall of Tears is a memorial being built for all the children whose lives have been lost due to abuse. Their lives have been taken by their abuser, right? And so these are little precious little babies and children, and that's a memorial for them. And what it is, it's a memorial for me too. I didn't lose my life, but I lost my heart and my soul. I lost my whole being abused as a child. So that memorial stands for me too. And I appreciate it, and so I love what they're doing, and I think it's great, and I hope that you will support it. And I hope you will support Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and I'm fighting alongside with a great team of people to promote education and awareness about child abuse that people don't want to hear about. Nobody wants to hear about it. Society doesn't want to hear about it. People would rather let children be abused and killed than have to talk about child abuse. It's kind of like what they don't know about, they don't have to worry about. It's always been the issue with society. It's what happened with my family. I mean, I was sexually abused by my brother, raped and sodomized over a period of 6 months or so, a little bit longer than that. And my mother didn't want to hear about it. Right? She knew about it. I told her about it. She just told me to wrap myself up like a mummy. That was her answer. She let my 21-year-old brother rape me and sodomize me. My 21-year-old brother, she let her son rape and sodomize and molest and sexually use her own daughter. This is what people will do. You know why? Because they don't want to deal with it. This is why children are dying. This is why children are being abused. Right? My own dad knew that my mother was physically abusing me, bashing my head in and practically killing me. Did he try to stop her? No, he just kicked my ass the next day. So, this is, I know about this stuff firsthand, and this is ridiculous that society would turn a blind eye. Please don't do that. You know what I mean? Get involved. Do whatever you can. But anyway, this show tonight, I really want to talk about sexual abuse, and this is from CallieMonroe.com, Resources for Healing, and she's a psychotherapist, and I just found the information here good. It's very short, little brief, compiled information that she's got here about incest and child sexual abuse, definitions, perpetrators, victims, and effects, right, by Callie Monroe, MED, psychotherapist, 2000. Well, I like the way she's got it written. Some of the stuff that she says here is very, very good, and I hope that everybody will, take a look at this website, even just for this information, www.calliemonroe.com, KALIMUNRO.com. And I just like the way that she has worded this stuff, and it's really quite good. So really, this show is a mature audience only. This is about child sexual abuse and incest, and I just ask that young children turn the show off unless you have an adult there who can help you decide whether you should be listening or not, right? And anybody else, just listen at your own discretion. So she's talking about child abuse and incest, right? Child sexual abuse. There's the definitions of child sexual abuse. Child sexual abuse is any form of sexual activity with a child by an adult or by another child where there is no consent or consent is not possible, or by another child who has power over the child, right? By this definition, it is possible for a child to be sexually abused by another child who is younger than they are. Sexual abuse includes, but is not limited to, showing a child pornographic materials, placing the child's hand on another person's genitals, touching a child's genitals, and or penetration of any orifice of a child's body. And that includes mouth, vagina, anus, with penis, finger, any object of any sort. Penetration does not have to occur for it to be sexual abuse. It says, who are the perpetrators? Perpetrators are most often someone that the child knows and trusts. Now, this is a fact, and they know this, and I mean, we all know this, and all the survivors know this. 95%, really. The stats are 90 to 95%, which is higher. It's actually more like 95, right? When you actually get down to the real stats out there that's from these federally funded studies that are done, 95% of child sexual abuse and incest that occurs is someone in the home that the family knows that has access to the child. So the only the stranger danger is 5%. That would be a complete stranger that the child may have never seen before, doesn't know. That's 5%. Right. The other 95% is either it's a family member, parent, caregiver, boyfriend, or somebody that's allowed in the home by the parent, a partner of some type, or it's siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, grandmas, grandpas, you name it. So it's also babysitters, daycare workers, neighbors, family friends, right? Just about anybody that get a hold of a child. Church people that you go to on a regular basis to a church, or camps, day camps for kids. Schools. Schools is a big one. You really have to watch the teachers. And I'm not running down teachers and saying that every teacher is a child sexual abuser, because they're not. I'm just saying that there are so many cases of child sexual abuse going on, especially child sexual abuse, in schools. And a lot of it's perpetrated by female teachers. So you want to know who your child's teacher is, right? You want to know who your child's babysitter is. You don't want to just leave your child with anyone, because your child could be being abused, and you may not even know if you don't know the signs and symptoms, right? This stuff happens, right? So this is what she says. Perpetrators are most often someone the child knows and trusts. As far as we know, perpetrators are most often male relatives, including fathers, brothers, grandfathers, uncles, cousins, friends of the family, neighbors, right? Perpetrators can also be female, including mothers, sisters, aunts, babysitters, and grandmothers, right? There's no one excluded. Child abuse anybody can abuse a child, right? Whether it's a female, man, or a woman, doesn't matter. Women abuse children and women sexually abuse children, so just so everybody knows that. And they said usually the perpetrator has easy access to the child because he or she has full responsibility for the child, or takes care of or visits the child, and is trusted by the child's parents. So if it's not the parents, it's somebody who has access to the child, right? Where does sexual abuse occur? Sexual abuse or incest can occur anywhere at any time, including in front of other people who do not or choose not to see. This is really interesting, because I hope people will pay attention to this. I have heard many stories of children being abused while other people were in the next room, in a car with them, or sitting at a dinner table. You got that right, people. Pay very close attention to this. Children are abused many times right out in the open sexually within their homes, and no one will do anything about it. This is how sick and perverted and twisted our society is, right? I know that when my brother raped me and sexually assaulted me and raped me and sodomized me, my mother was in a room 2 rooms down. So there you go. I was bound and gagged, so I couldn't really scream, but my voice was muffled with a pillow and everything else. But the thing is it's happening right in homes, right where there's somebody around that if they were paying attention, if they really wanted to see what was going on, they could save that child from the abuse, right? But many times they won't. They'll just ignore it, turn a blind eye. I've heard stories and seen so many survivor stories of somebody fondling a child right, in the room while somebody's standing there. And this is kind of how my family was, because my family was so dysfunctional and so mentally ill and twisted and everything else. That sexual touching just was sort of the norm with my dad. He was quite a bit of a fondler. He liked to sit and ogle, and walk in on you in the bathroom and ogle and stuff like this, and just check you out, and just a lot of perverse stuff, right? My dad was a sexually abusive man. He abused my mother sexually and raped her and hurt her, and she just probably figured that when my brother sexually assaulted me that was my problem. That's what she told me anyway. So really sad. So who is sexually abused? All children are vulnerable to sexual abuse. Sexual abuse and incest occur in every race, class, religion, culture, country, right? It doesn't matter where it is. People have been sexually using children forever, right? This has been going on since time began. It's absolutely horrific. It needs to stop because children's bodies are not meant for that, first of all, not from an adult. And children should be allowed to be children and explore their own sexuality with their own peers, and they should be allowed to explore their own sexuality on their own time, right? Why should an adult be forcing themselves on a child? That makes me sick to my stomach. And not just because I was raped and sodomized. It makes me sick to think that somebody who's an adult would want to sexually use a child. That makes me ill because an adult should be thinking about having sexual relations with another adult, not a child. See? So there's something incredibly wrong with this picture. And I tell you what, if people don't start screaming out and becoming outraged and pissed off and angry about this, then we're all sick, aren't we? Right? If it's okay to sexually use a child, molest a child, beat a child, burn a child, rape a child, sodomize a child, beat a child, kill a child, what does that say about us? You know? What does that say? If we're not outraged every day by the crap that's going on, something wrong with us. Well, you're right. There is something wrong with society. There's absolutely nothing wrong with me. I don't mind screaming out about this stuff. But there is a whole lot wrong with a whole lot of people out there who will not stand up and get something done with these laws, get the laws changed, lobby the government. Children's lives mean more than a dog's life. They really do. Babies are dying. People would rather put more money into the Humane Society than they would into stopping child abuse. I mean, it's like, come on. Hey, I'm all for, animal rights, but let's get our priorities straight, right? This is serious stuff. So you want to be thankful if you did not ever have to suffer this stuff. I'm telling you, you do. You want to be very, very thankful. I've had people tell me, well, it's not my problem. I wasn't abused as a child, so piss on you. I've had people tell me that to my face. And, I don't believe in violence. I just kind of blow it off. And I'm like, well, that's okay. I feel sorry for you because you're just, you're just probably just an evil, rotten person, and you'll probably just rot in hell anyway. Because I can't imagine how anybody could think like that. You know what I mean? Something seriously wrong with our society. Something, it. Our world is messed up, right? And it's not these kids' fault. This is absolutely horrific. So she says here, different effects and coping strategies of child sexual abuse. The effects of child sexual abuse are wide-ranging and vary from survivor to survivor. And this information here is quite interesting. I really want to point this out. Depending on a number of different factors, such as age of the victim, the duration of the abuse, the number of perpetrators, the nature of the relationship with the perpetrator, and the severity of the assault. So she says here, this is her talking, she says, I always hesitant to write that last one, right, the severity of the assault, because all abuse is traumatic and harmful to victims. I have known women quite traumatized by their breasts being repeatedly grabbed when they were a child. While this may not be as severe as some other forms of abuse, it can have strong and long-lasting effects. It's important to remember that while being assaulted in a more violent manner does have its own specific effects, it in no way minimizes the reality and experience of others who have not experienced that kind of violence. That's exactly right. I had unwanted sexual touching from my brother's friends who were all like older teenagers and I was just a kid. And, because I had already been raped and sodomized by my brother and sexually used by my brother and was being abused by my mother. And my mother, of course, wasn't telling me to say no. You know what I mean? My mother never taught me anything except for, a whole lot of pain. I didn't know to say no, So these two friends of my brother's would, get me to, do stuff like lift my top and stuff like this, and they would like touch me, and a lot of unwanted sexual touching. And of course I didn't want it. I'd be standing there crying, you know what I mean? But they probably knew that my brother was sexually using me anyway, and so they probably figured, hey, we'll just see what we can get, That's how sick people are, I tell you that. And it's really, really sad. That was just as damaging to me as, really honestly, as any of the abuse that I suffered. It added to the pile. It just added that much more. Then in school, in junior high, I had a guy walk by and grab my crotch. And because I was sexually abused as a child, that was very serious for me. You know what I mean? I was traumatized by it. I literally beat the guy up. I chased him down, beat him up, kicked his ass. And a teacher broke it up, which is good because I was going to kill him. And, excuse me, people were like, calm down, what did he do? I mean, I felt like telling them, look, this guy just reiterated what my brother did to me when I was 8 years old, which was to rape and sodomize me and sexually use me for about, 6, 7 months, 8 months. So, I had a lot of unwanted sexual touching, and by people that, for some reason they think it's okay to do that. And it's not. So, there you go. I wish my mother would have done the right thing and taught me how to say no, right? Emotional effects include feelings of confusion, powerlessness, helplessness. Well, I did say no to my brother. I mean, my brother had to bounding deep. He had to tie me up because I would not let him do what he wanted to do to me. So to bind me and gag me, right? So the issue is I did fight back, right? But the thing is with these two friends of my brother's that were hanging around, this was in the middle of the daytime in the living room. It's like, oh my God. So emotional effects include feelings of confusion, powerlessness, helplessness, pain, betrayal, sadness, grief, loss, feeling dirty, shame, vulnerable, unsafe, scared, terrified, horrified, depressed, angry, numb from feelings and body, suspicious, untrusting, tortured, sensitive, emotional, hurt, panic, anxiety, and feeling miserable. I mean, anybody can feel that from any type of abuse, whether it's sexual abuse or not, physical abuse, verbal, emotional, psychological abuse is, I know about it because I know about it all. It's harsh, and so many times, survivors will have any number of those feelings at any given time, right? Beliefs about self. Beliefs about oneself include I'm bad, no one loves me, no one could love me, I am unlovable, I am dirty, it's my fault, I'm stupid. These things that survivors of abuse may feel, especially child sexual abuse. I should have said something, I should have told someone, I hate myself, I must be bad, right? I must have wanted it, I must have done something, I'm being punished, I deserve to die, I don't want to be me, why do these things happen to me, I must have deserved it. This is stuff that people will say. I know because I've done some of that, but not a whole lot because I kept a lot of anger in my heart towards my abusers and never really took on the guilt. Right? I was just like, those suckers, look what they did to me. And so I've always kind of known where to place the anger towards, right? But some people will implode that and turn on themselves. And one thing I did have a hard time was just because my mother was my main abuser and was always, was not ever showing me any love or any care. I did kind of develop an attitude that I couldn't even love myself. You know what I mean? Like I really didn't love myself, and I really didn't love the person that I had become because of the abuse that I had suffered, which was this person that had a lot of hatred in my heart, a lot of anger, and a lot of rage and stuff. So I had to learn how to love myself and how to love my wounded self, those wounded parts of me that I didn't love either. You know what I mean? That wounded child that I was so long ago. I had to learn how to nurture and how to self-soothe and how to comfort those wounded parts of myself, those at different stages throughout my life. And this is what I've been doing a whole lot of work on in the morning, but on my One Child Abuse Survivor to another show. But this is incredibly serious, and people think, the reason I'm covering child sexual abuse right now is because I'm dealing with the issues of incest, right? So I'm going back. I'm actually writing a book right now. But I'm going back and getting hold of with some heavy-duty memories and which include body memories and everything else. It's very horrific. And I was posting something on Facebook one night, and I had this person actually say, "What's the big deal about CSA? How come you're not talking about child physical abuse?" And I got mad because I said he didn't even read my article. This guy, I won't name names, but this person said didn't even read my article. My article said included child physical abuse, verbal, emotional, psychological abuse, and neglect, because I always do, because I've been abused, like I've experienced it all, so I know. And so I always include all of it because it's all incredibly damaging, and it's all the same to me. It destroys a child, right? I mean, even if a child's not physically abused, the verbal abuse, the emotional abuse is just as damaging to me. You know what I mean? Because I know, because my mother was emotionally abusive towards me as well as verbally abusive, and it hurt just as much as being beaten. I mean, it probably hurt a little bit worse, because it's what really cut my heart, and it just cut my heart right out. You know what I mean? Like the child sexual abuse is the same thing. It's all horrific, so I don't minimize any of it, and I don't put one above the other. It's all horrific, So I had this guy say this to me. What's the big deal about CSA? How come everybody's pushing for this prevention of CSA? And I'm in incest. And my article had just finished talking about the fact that I had been raped and sodomized at the age of 8 years old by my 21-year-old brother. And I thought, how could you be so insensitive to say something like that to me? You know what I mean? Like I'm out here trying to stop and promote awareness and education regarding child sexual abuse and incest. And here I got some guy telling me, what's the big deal about CSA? I'm like, oh, I don't know. Have you ever been raped when you were 8 years old by a 21-year-old man? Have you ever been sodomized? And I'm talking repeatedly. I'm not talking, one time would have been bad enough, right? But I'm talking about over a period of close to a year. Like I just wanted to ask him that. I was like, You're going to tell me you're going to be that insensitive? You know? I'm like, whoa, people, man. So, and I'm dealing with this incest stuff right now anyway, so I thought, well, I'm going to talk about this on my show, so that's why I'm doing this. And also for that very reason that this one person basically tried to get me to shut down and to stop talking about child sexual abuse. I'm like, no way. I'm not. You know what I mean? This is the reason why child sexual abuse still continues on today, because nobody wants to talk about it. This is the reason why incest continues on today, because nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to get those children any help. They just allow the abuse to continue on, turn a blind eye. Can't tell me that a parent doesn't know that somebody in the family is not messing around and molesting a child, sexually using a child, exploiting that child, or raping and sodomizing that child. Can't tell me that. No, because I know better. The issue is that a lot of people just don't want to know. Right? They don't want to know. No. Because then they'll have to confront that abuser, and it's probably their husband or it's their wife. Or it's grandma or grandpa. And they don't want to have to deal with the aftermath of having, so they just figure, oh, well, and maybe they were sexually abused as a child, so they think, well, oh, well, I survived it, they can't too. That's basically what my mother was telling me. I mean, that's so incredibly wrong. You can't even be more wrong than that. So, this stuff was not our fault. So if you're a survivor and you're listening to this, you make sure that you realize this is not our fault, and we certainly deserve to have a good life, and we need to get help if we can't cope and we're really having a hard time, right? Minimizing belief. Survivors are confronted with overwhelming pain. So in order to cope with extreme and intense emotions, the details of what happened and who hurt them, they may try to convince themselves it wasn't so bad, it didn't really hurt them. Others have been hurt much more, right? This is a form of self-protection. It did hurt, it still hurts, but it may be too hard or too scary right now to face it all. So this is what Callie Monroe says. So she says, as a form of self-protection, minimizing may help slow the process down, which may be what the survivor needs from time to time. As a constant way of coping, however, minimization leads to self-blame and self-hatred, which is not helpful and hurts a great deal, right? Because it's false. And so eventually, a survivor like myself would be sitting around saying, well, it did happen, it did hurt, but yet I keep minimizing it. I keep saying that it didn't. And so basically it's a lie to yourself, even though you know what happened. It's horrific. It's absolutely horrific, right? Rationalization. Survivors need to protect themselves from the truth of the situation. After all, someone they trusted and perhaps loved hurt them very badly. Rationalization is when a survivor explains the abuse behavior away, like he didn't know what he was doing, or he was abused himself as a child, or he thought he was showing me love, or she was really messed up. She didn't mean to hurt me, right? These type of things. The survivor is trying to protect her or himself from the horrible truth of the situation. Now, I've done this before and actually said stuff like this before. My brother was abused as a child, so I thought, well, maybe because he was abused sexually as a child, maybe that's why he decided to rape, sodomize me at the age of 8 years old. You can't excuse that stuff away. It doesn't help to rationalize it, because in my mind, at some point I have to make peace with this, And so, my brother killed himself at the age of 33. And it's kind of like, you sit back at the end of the day and you think, well, at some point I have to make sense of this. I have to be able to get a hold of it and find peace somewhere. Find peace somewhere in it, right? And it's not easy, because I know what my family went through. I know that my mother was abused as well as a child. She was also being abused by my dad. But does it excuse what she did to me? No, not at all. My dad was abused as a child as well. Does it excuse what he did to all of us? No. Right? At the end of the day, truth is truth, and I mean, I know that none of that's an excuse, and you can't rationalize it. There's no rationalizing for somebody to hurt a child like that, and especially coming from, my parents were both abused as children. They knew how hard it was on them to be abused as children and how much it hurt, and then they went and did that to us. And so really, I mean, it's kind of like a double whammy, double blame on them. I actually put more blame and responsibility on them because of that, because they knew better, right? And so, it's pretty harsh, this whole issue of child sexual abuse and incest. And I'll be talking about this for probably another, I don't know how long, right? So I'm going to bring as much information out as I can on my night shows about it. And I'm also talking one child abuse survivor to another in the morning. That's my healing journey. So 6 o'clock a.m. It's rather early, but that's what I'm talking about this last while, the grieving process, the healing process for the inner child, right? And I'm looking at it from the point of my 8-year-old child who I'm still grieving with and trying to learn how to heal from from that sexual abuse and that incest, right? So this is what I'm working on right now. And so it is adult material, and you do need to listen at your own discretion. But if you'd like to tune in, I'll be on tomorrow morning. One child abuse survivor to another. So thanks for being here. Thanks for tuning in. Do what you can. Learn the signs and symptoms of all the different types of abuse, and then make sure that children around you are not being abused. I know I do. I don't have any kids. I lost my baby. That's my legacy left from being raped and sodomized at the age of 8 years old. I can't have children. So there you go. The issue is I don't have any children, and I never did have any children. Or adopt or anything like that, but I'm always looking out for the kids around me, you know what I mean, to make sure that they're not being abused, and keeping an eye out, because I will do the right thing. I will report it, and I won't report it to social services. I'll report it to the police, so there can be a police report made up. And it's a crime. It's a crime to abuse a child, and I hope everybody remembers that. Check out Dreamcatchers for Abused Children at dreamcatchersforabusedchildren.com. Check out our shows on here on Blog Talk Radio at Dreamcatchers, and learn the signs and symptoms. Get the information and learn how to protect children, and then do it. Right? They are vulnerable. They are completely vulnerable. They cannot protect themselves. We have to do it. So make sure you do stand up for children, stand up for child rights, and let's stop this mess. Right? Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great night. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.